Hello, this is Mr. Frank, and welcome to I Can Solve Percent of Change Problems. This is Learning Target 7B, Day 1. We are approaching our halfway point in this part of the unit, so first day on percent of change problems. Let's do a quick refresher, just so we remember decimal to percent conversions. So to convert a decimal to percents, we need to move the decimal point 2 places to the right and add a percent sign. So let's get some practice here. So if we have 0.45, we are going to, let me get a pen here, we're going to move that decimal point 2 places over, add a percent sign, and it's 45%. Pretty straightforward. Let's try some others. Oh, here's one. 1.1. We move the decimal point. There's not another number there, but we can still put a placeholder there for a 0. So that's going to be 110%. And what if it's 2? There's no decimal to move, but if you don't see a decimal, it's always just to the right of the number right there. So then we would move it over 2 spots, and we'd have 200%. And lastly, here's 0.01. We'd move it over 2, and just like this top one, we'd have, that would be 1%, where we move it over 2 decimals. So that's how we do it. Just a quick refresher. You should hopefully remember all of that. So some key vocabulary you're going to need to remember and write down. So percent of change is how much in percent a quantity has increased or decreased from the original amount. So that's we're going to have a formula a little bit from now, which I'll show you that. And there are 2 types of change. There's percent of increase and there's percent of decrease. So when the new amount is greater than the original amount, that's percent of increase. When the new amount is less than the original amount, that's the percent of decrease. I think that makes sense. So pause, make sure you write these down and understand them, and then come back. All right, let's keep going. So let's think about percent change. I want you to really understand what percent change is. If it's a 0% change, nothing changes. If we started with $1, we end with $1. If it's a 1% change, we start with $1, we're going to have 1% more. Let's say these are all percent increases. So 1% more, 1% of $1, 1% means out of 100. So 1 out of 100 is increasing in the dollar. So that's actually a penny because there are 100 pennies in a dollar. So a 1% increase from $1 would be $1.01. What about a 10%? If I started with $1, what would I end up with? I hope you said a dime. So it would be $1 plus a dime more. It would be a 10% increase. And if it's a 100% increase of $1, whew, that's a bunch. What's that going to be? So I start with $1. I actually double my money. So I start with $1. I end up with $2. What about a 1,000% increase? I start with $1. And I get $10 more, so I end up, look at that, I'm in the money there. So that's pretty nice. So that's just to give you a sense of how much we're increasing when we're talking about percent change. And this, again, was increase. So here's the formula I promised I'd tell you about. So percent of change is percent P. That's what we're going to call it. So P percent. So that is the amount of increase or decrease is the numerator. The amount of increase or decrease is the numerator, and the original amount is always in the denominator. So that's key. We're going to make sure you remember that. The original amount is always in the denominator. So you're going to, the formula I put up here in the upper right-hand part of the screen, so you can always see it. You should also write that in your notes so you have it. And let's try a problem. So the school had 840 students enrolled last year. This year there are 882 students enrolled. We want to find the percent increase. So the key information I've just underlined, my 2 amounts. So I need to get the amount of increase or decrease.
Mr. Auer, you have
just a minute.
Mr. Auer, thank you.
Sorry about that. So the amount of increase or decrease. So I'm going to do 882 minus 840 over 840 because 840 is my original amount. So that's going to be 42 over 840. And now I'm going to change that to a decimal. Might need to use a calculator, or you can use long division. Then I'm going to change that to a percent. So it's a 5% increase. So I hope you did all right. Here are the key steps. So note the problem's an increase or a decrease problem. Write the amount of increase or decrease in the numerator and divide that by the original amount. Subtract the 2 numbers in the numerator. And then solve by making the fraction into a decimal and the decimal into a percent. Those are the key steps. So a couple of things to watch out for. The denominator is always the original amount. Never put the new amount there. Denominator is always the original amount. And before you use the formula, before you start this, determine if this is a percent increase or decrease formula. Because the numerator, you're subtracting the smaller number from the larger number. So the numerator is going to be positive regardless. So make sure you know if you're increasing or decreasing before you get the answer. And you might want to write that down on your page as well. So let's do a decrease problem. So in the summer, outside our school, you can see 50 different birds on a typical day. In the winter, you typically see 5 different birds. What's the percent change in the number of birds seen outside the school from summer to winter? So we need to figure out the amount of increase or decrease. In this case, it's going to be the amount decrease. So I just underline my key information. And my amount decrease is going to be 50 minus 5. And my original number, my original amount is 50. So if I do that subtraction, I get 45 over 50. Now I'm going to change that fraction into a decimal. I get 0.9, and now I'm going to change that into a percent, and that's 90%. So my answer is it's a 90% decrease. All right, so I want you to try this. So I had in my wallet $60.
Ms. Carrico, you have a student waiting. Ms. Carrico, thank you.
Sorry about that. So I had $60 in my wallet. I mowed the neighbor's lawn and earned $10, so now I had $70. To the nearest tenth, what's the percent change in money in my wallet? So here are the key steps we went over. So why don't you pause here and try this out. All right, welcome back. So let's see. So you should have done the amount increase, which would be $70 minus $60, over the original amount, which is $60. So I end up with 10 over 60. So I could put that in my calculator or do the division, and I have a decimal, 0.1666. I could put a bar over the 6, but I asked for this for the nearest tenth. So we need to convert this to a percent and go to the nearest tenth. So it'll be 16.7%. All right, so that's our, and it's 16.7% increase. Now, because I can't rap, I'm going to have my buddy here do it for you. So I'm going to pause here, and we're going to have a guest star here. Thanks, Tim.
Here we go. Take the old and the new and subtract the 2. Put it over the original. Make a fraction, boo. Take the fraction. Take the fraction. Change to a percent. You know what to do. Take the old and the new and subtract the 2. Put it over the original. Make a fraction, boo. Take the fraction. Take the fraction. Change to a percent. You know what to do.
Thanks, Tim, for that great performance. All right, hope you're remembering that to the beat now. So on your own, do this problem. A player scored 8 points in her first basketball game of the season. In the second game, she scored 10 points. What is the percent change in points from the first game to the second game? And is it a percent increase or decrease? So pause here, do this problem, and you will bring it into school tomorrow. All right, welcome back. So again, you'll bring this to school tomorrow. And to end our video, if you can take some notes on what you learned or were reminded of, and questions that you have are. Thanks, and hope you enjoyed the video. See ya!